Hello everybody, this is Fraser Andrath from the Herald Digital team bringing unto you three knowledgeable researchers from different parts of the world who have been very interested in studying about Goa's early modern history. So let us hear what they have to tell us.
So good day, everyone. My name is Manuel Bastias Saavedra. I'm a professor at the Hannover University in Germany. And I'm talking about a research project we are conducting there on the Spanish and Portuguese empires and how land was held by different communities. And I'll be speaking about how Goa compares with other parts of the Spanish and Portuguese empires.
I'm Patrícia Souza de Faria. I'm a professor at the Federal Rural University of Rio de Janeiro.
I'm Susana Bastos Mateus. I'm from the University of Lisbon. I'm a researcher there. And I've been talking about New Christians' properties in rural Goa and how the Inquisition surveys the vigilance of orthodoxy, of religious orthodoxy in these spaces.
I started working with colonial history since the last maybe 6-7 years. And I moved into this field out of interest on questions of land and property. And that's what we're working on now. And since the last 3 years, I've been coordinating a large research project on land and property in the Portuguese and Spanish empires.
So this includes even the comunidades and things like that?
Yes, and so one part of the project, which is being conducted by Roger Lida Jesus, is on the Comunidades de Goa, and he's focusing on land tenure in Goa more generally, and we're looking at different kinds of documents. Within the framework of the project, this is very important because what we're trying to do is look at the local normative systems of regulation more than the Portuguese or the Spanish systems. So when I have time outside of research, because we have to work a lot, when I have free time, I have to write a book I'm working on. So I don't have that much time, but I like going to concerts, for example. I like swimming, and I try to fit this into my schedule.
And it's been how long that you are in Goa now?
We arrived last Sunday, so I think it's about 4 or 5 days now. Before that, we were in Indonesia at a conference, so we've had a long trip. I think I've been traveling for like 2 weeks now. So I'm staying for another week, and I hope to come back when I have more time.
And
Generally, when you speak about these topics, land and colonialism in the Portuguese and Spanish empires, but more generally in the history of empires, you usually get this image that the Europeans very quickly imposed their own notions of property. And what we're doing in the project is trying to show that this was not really the case, and that lots of the local forms of regulation and norms and ways of understanding the relationship with land remained for a long time, even until today. So the project focuses on Goa, but we put this in comparison with other parts of these empires. So we have a case study on Brazil, the northern Brazil. We have a case study on Mexico, which is very interesting because it's an indigenous region and it's very comparable in terms of sources and timing to the case of the Goan comunidades. We have a case study on Cape Verde in Africa, on the coast of Africa, on Basque country in northern Spain, and the Philippines as well. So we're looking at all of these spaces, trying to understand how local communities kind of navigated this relationship with land in the context of the empire.
okay, and when it comes to studying Goan comunidades, so how did you go about? Did you visit any comunidad office in Goa?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
No, and this is not really in the scope because we're working very much in the 16th century, where it was kind of, I guess, different, and we haven't explored this avenue, but this would be very interesting.
So it would be like a comparison how the comunidades functioned in the 16th century and how it is now.
This could be
Whether they're as strong as they were in those days, or now it's slowly dying off.
Yeah, the Goan archives here, that's where we're also going to the archives every day. They have some records, and they have to a large extent, in my opinion, not been fully explored, and this is something that we're trying to do. And yeah, so this is where we would get the information. But I think it's there's a lot of work to be done because the archives are still, to a large extent, not really. And when it comes to issues of land, it's not really been a very big topic. There's some bibliography, but not much. I think there could be issues of preservation that would be important. Some documents we were looking at today, they're not very good kind of state of conservation. And to avoid that these get destroyed in the future, it would be good to get them digitalized maybe, so they're not manipulated by people in general, and not only researchers, but I think this is, they're very delicate, some of them, so I think this would be important.
Okay, so since you have been in Goa these days now, so how is the monsoon treating you?
It's been okay. I thought it was going to be worse. I was reading about it and people were telling me about what it is, and I thought I was going to be suffering a lot, but I've really liked it. And I lived in southern Chile. I worked at a university there, and it was a very rainy place also, so I think it's been nice actually. And we work mainly on land and land records, and we're trying to figure out kind of the rules and norms and expectations that people had when dealing with each other and with other people, with regards to who could use, when, and who could access. So for example, if people from outside the comunidad could access these lands or not, and how, under what conditions. So these are questions that are more interesting.
And are there any records as to how often were auctions held at comunidades?
You could reconstruct this, but you need to go through the records. So this would be information that you could find in the archives, but you would have to kind of compile it statistically to see this quotas. But I think you could find this also.
Okay.
But it's not cleanly that we find there were so many. You can't find it like this. You have to reconstruct.
And it was not something that was uniform throughout Goa, right?
Of course, yeah.
It would be differing from
Yes.
comunidad to comunidad.
Yes, it would be different. That's one of the arguments of our project. That's why it's so complex, because actually it's not, you can't really speak about Goa in kind of a homogeneous sense, the same way you can't speak of Mexico in a homogeneous sense, because each different community had its own kinds of regulation, and it depended on how it interacted with the crown, how it interacted with the church, and kind of different levels of occupation by Europeans as well. So all of these factors really changed the way lands are regulated in the end.
And since it's the 16th century, it would be to some extent when some rules and policies of these comunidad, so-called Gaonkari system were related to the local temple.
Yes.
So are these records available, meaning records that mention relations with the temple?
You have, in the archives, you have some references to the Namoshins and to the Nelly lands. So, and they're mentioning this until the 18th century, when these are not really there anymore, and the Pagode lands, so you have all of these things. So there are relationships, but some of these lands are taken by the church, and some are there and they auction them, so they can be used by different people after auction, but this is also something that needs to be studied. I've only seen the documents. Well, I could say that we're very happy to be here. This was very, for me it was very important to come and see Goa and learn more about it, because I've been thinking about this place for a long time in relation with other places, so we were always thinking about these comparisons. So it's really exciting to be here, and I'm happy to kind of be able to think about this part of India in relation to other parts of the world. I think it's,
I'm Patrícia Souza de Faria. I was born in Rio de Janeiro. I'm a professor at the Department of History at the Rural Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. I wrote a PhD dissertation on Franciscans in Goa in 16th and 17th century. My studies are about mainly the religious wars in Goa and the Inquisition. And then recently I began to study a new subject linked to religious wars, but changed the approach and the subject. So nowadays I'm studying the administration of lands by the Jesuits in Goa and Pasai in the northern province in India, northern province in India. And this new research has linked to the IBELAND, the research group coordinated by Manuel Saavedra. So since 2022, I began to study and read about the relation between law and land. So I have changed the approach in my research, the role of the missionaries, but to think not in the sense of only religiosity, or think that the missionaries have a lot of land to administer in the sense of economic interest, but thinking how it's relevant to understand the social relation, how the Jesuits try to deal with the conflicts with the Ganka, the residents, or the crown officials in Goa. So thinking mainly the controversies. I will talk about a very important moment in the relationships between the Jesuits and the Gankas of the Raya village. In the year of 1587, the Gankas of Raya village leased the lands of the Coates Island of Hachol. These lands were leased to the Jesuits, more precisely for the rector of the college of Hachol. And in this moment, we have maybe a compromise. The Ganka and the Jesuits or had an agreement. There are a lot of documents about this moment. There is the Memo. Memo is a document produced by the Gankaria in order to record this moment. In 1625, there was a decision that was favorable to both Ganka and the Jesuits, both in the sense of the first position of the Procurador da Coroa was recover the lands for the king. The idea the lands belonged to the king, and the king was responsible for solving the question. Not the Ganka were able to lease the lands. And the decision was the Ganka had a former decision favor to maintain the lands. So what the final decision in 1625 only confirmed the first decision that was ignored by the crown officials. So it looks like a mistake of a crown official. You don't understand the entire procedures, the historical process. So the decision was favorable to Gankas. So the Gankas had the right to lease the land to the Jesuits, and the Jesuits maintained the land because he was the Jesuits were paying the tax, doing everything according to the law. In some cases, the Ganka and the Jesuits had different opinions, different interests, but in this case, the decision that favored Ganka favored also the Jesuits. Sometimes my experience is trying to establish ties, links between Goa and Brazil. Every moment when I see buildings, when I think even no obvious things linked to the food, linked to behaviors, landscapes. When I see some landscapes that look like place in which I had the experience in my childhood, close the place where my grandparents lived, so it's so strong. So we try to
relate Brazil and Goa.
Yes, because I think Goa is almost a bridge between Brazil and the entire India. It's difficult to surpass this first impression because it's so strong. I found how some fruits are kind of things linked to even the landscapes, mango trees, jacas, is so important in Brazil, and a lot of people in Brazil don't know the origin of these fruits. In Brazil, we eat rice a lot, but it's not. There are not similarities into the foods, but a lot of things people food in India, we also food in Brazil, but the sound of the rain, the smell of the rain, I think is a good experience.
Okay. So you're here in Goa for how long now? April?
Unfortunately, I'm come back to Brazil in the next week, so it only I stay over 15 days, but so intense days. I have to go to Old Goa and see.
So in this session, I will talk about the daily lives of the new Christians in Goa, but through the gaze of looking at their properties. They presence in some rural areas of Goa, and how they build some sociability outside the urban space. So what they did outside urban space, and the agents and other people that were surrounding the same spaces. Last years were years of a lot of research, so I have not so much spare time, free time as I want to, but when I do, I love to read. I also write. I write theatrical plays in Portugal. So my spare time is mostly reading and writing. So the Goa Inquisition is established more or less when the Council of Trent finished, so in the 60s of the 16th century. And the Inquisition, of course, gave to society a more rigid way to look at orthodoxy. So at the end, I think that the presence of the Inquisition and the censorship that the Inquisition promotes helps to create a more rigid canon, also regarding art or some sensible expressions. But that is not a specificity of the Inquisition, but let's say that the Inquisition made part of a religious context or ambience that may promote this kind of normativity more strict regarding religious expressions.
Okay. So we know that the Inquisition was more directed towards neo-converts, new Christians, right? So suppose if there was a person A who got converted to Christianity, but had an image of say Our Lady in their oratorio at home, which was made by a local artist with syncretism, where, for example, the Virgin Mary was maybe shown standing on a peacock, like Parvati on a peacock. So, was that? Do you think maybe would have been allowed to be kept on their altar, or would they be accused of, moving back to their older practices?
I think in that case it will be allowed to be there. Is except if the Inquisition suspected that they are using the images for other purposes. So that's the thing. Not the image in itself or the aesthetics of the image, but sometimes they consider they are using it for wrong purpose in the case of the considerations of the Inquisition.
Okay. So, but you have not come across any Inquisition trials where the Inquisitor mentions about these kind of offenses, right? Where an artist was subjected to Inquisition because of what certain practices involved. Nothing of that sort, right?
No, and
No.
as you know, the
Not many survive.
documents of the Inquisition, the
Yes.
Inquisition did not
Yeah.
survive.
So, what would be one of the fondest memories that you have created, or you will be taking along with you from Goa?
the monsoon.
Okay.
Because, well,
Inseparable.
yes, it was so heavy, the monsoon this time. The first time I have been here in late May, beginning of June, so it was like the beginning, a very soft beginning of the monsoon. And now all July
You
is
see the true colors.
yes, the true colors of the monsoon. And as an historian, I read a lot in documents about the monsoon, but I never understood it well. So it's a fond memory, a difficult but a very fond memory that I have. Yes, it's true. I went to Old Goa and some other places, not as I wanted to be.
Okay, so have you tried Goan food? Anything from Goa that you liked? Which dessert maybe? What is your favorite dessert?
Of course, it's bebinca.
Bebinca. And do you find it in Portugal?
Yes, but
Yes. Not as the
No.
same one that you find here.
No, also because here it's so fresh that it's different. Some Goan restaurants in Lisbon have good bebinkas, but I don't know, I find it here more tasteful.
So you tried the one baked on firewood
Mhm.
here locally. So there are some people who still do it at home with the firewood, but commercially it's prepared using an electric oven nowadays. Yeah.
Also, another fond memory I have is the guard at Fundação Orient, where I am staying. At night, he is also hearing radio in Konkani.
Okay.
So I have this memory trying to sleep, or when I go to sleep and have this Konkani music playing all around. It's very, very beautiful. I love the melody of it. So I read a novel from the 19th, from late 19th, from 80 something. That spoke about Mando.
So it is said that like what Fado is to Portugal, Mando is to Goa. And while you were researching, when you got into this topic, was there any inspiration or someone who inspired you to get into taking up this field of research or entering into this field of research?
Yes, I have some teachers of religious studies when I was starting my studies some years ago, and they gave me the insight to look at minorities, specifically religious minorities. So for almost 20 years now, more or less, I've been studying religious minorities in different places and the implications of religious persecution and diaspora movement, for instance. So I remember some of my teachers in Lisbon that gave me this idea of research field. So in my case, regarding the forced conversions of the Jews and the new Christian diaspora. And then some years ago, some of my colleagues started to study the Goa Inquisition, and I was curious about it. One of my colleagues, Miguel Rodrigues de Lourenço, that was also here in Goa some weeks ago, he is coordinating a research project about the surviving material of the Goa Inquisition regarding new Christians. So he challenged me to pursue this research, and I create a new layer because I study gender studies also, so I'm more focused on these new Christian women in Goa in the 16th and 17th century. So it has been a long journey, but a very fruitful one.
Also, one last question is, since you have come across a lot of some of the Inquisition trials, in these trials, what are the locals in Goa referred to as before conversion? Were they referred to by, like, they were Muslims? They would not be called Hindus then. I do not know. They would not be referred to as Hindus, or they were even the Muslims. What are the words that were used for these communities that lived here in Goa in the 16th century?
We have different words, and we have to take in consideration that we are using the terms of the Inquisition or other religious Catholic institutions. But For instance, for Muslims, they use the Portuguese term Moros, like Moors, and then they have a large umbrella concept regarding the population converted to Christianity, the local population. They call it the cristãos da terra, no? The Christians of the land, or the newly converted. So they address this population regarding the moment of conversion. Sometimes they also call them Gentiles.
Okay, so that's a general word.
A very general word.
So there's no mention of Hindus as
that I
such.
found in documents.
Okay, and another thing I wanted to say is that now there are very few surviving trials. So are they digitized or are they still in the hard form that you have to refer them, because since they are quite old records, many of them it's not advisable to handle them by hand because they're brittle and tend to break and things like that. So are they digitized, which enables scholars and researchers to get easy access to them?
Yes, some years ago in Lisbon. So let's start. We have a national archive in Lisbon that has the most part, almost complete collection of the documentation of the Inquisition, the Portuguese Inquisition in general. And the surviving trials of the Inquisition are conserved in Lisbon, in that archive. And the reason why they survived the destruction of the documentation of the Inquisition, it's diverse. We have sometimes Lisbon ask for some copy of the trial. So what we have there are most part are not the original ones, are copies made in Goa and sent to Lisbon for various reasons. And they are conserved in one specific documental font that is called Inquisition of Lisbon, actually, not Inquisition of Goa. And the Inquisition of Lisbon, the old documents of the Inquisition of Lisbon were by some action of some patrons some years ago to patrocinate the digitalization of the old documents. So these trials, actually the remaining trials of the Inquisition, are digitized, are online, and can be seen by anyone who enters and search for them.
Yeah.
They are in Portuguese, so, and the Portuguese of the 16th and 17th
Will be quite different from the Portuguese of today.
Yes, and also the handwriting is sometimes difficult for a non-trainee.
So that might be one of the challenges that you faced while researching, to understand what is being written there.
Yes, and also that's one of the reasons we decided to publish and to transcribe the trials
In
and
English.
to in Portuguese first and then translate into English.
The book on the Inquisition trials on Catarina de Arthur, which is in English. I think it's the first ever book that you have in English of an Inquisition trial, if I'm not mistaken.
Of an inquisitorial trial of the Goa Inquisition.
Of the Goa Inquisition.
Goa
So it's the
Inquisition.
first
Yes.
ever. Right?
Yes.
So thanks to all of you for that wonderful
so
work. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this session today. For more such interesting content, keep watching Herald TV.